Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And as you can tell from the title, we decided that we'd tackle ISOM, since this seems to be popular right now, um, at least on the online sphere. So ISOM issue 1 is what we're reviewing. And here it is. The story is one where we're introduced at the start to a police chief who's apparently griping about not receiving credit. Boo hoo. I'm sorry you signed up for a job where you're just supposed to serve the people and not do it for credit. Like, you never see Commissioner Gordon whining about how everyone else is taking credit. He never cared. But I think the idea is that we're supposed to regard the chief of police as a bit of a buffoon. So right there, we're kind of seeing a subversion of Commissioner Gordon. Not sure I'm fond of that, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure that a better cop character will be introduced later. No, I imagine so.
He reminded me of the whiny J. Jonah Jameson vibe.
Yeah, that might be what Eric July is going for. But that said, the story soon gets into the pretty typical black hero who retired and is coming out of retirement, which this is an entire trope ever since Black Lightning came out. And the reason I say Black Lightning is because the thing about Black Lightning was he was the original black hero who retired. In his case, he was blackmailed by his wife into retirement. Then, years later, she still divorced him because she was a jerk. And deciding that his daughters were essentially all but grown up and unable to ignore the poor state of the city that he lives in, Black Lightning comes out of retirement to take the fight once more to crime. Now, ever since then, every black hero has had this origin story because it worked really well for Black Lightning. Now, there's an even better black superhero backstory, which nobody's really copied, which I find kind of funny. And that's that of Static Shock, who is arguably the best of almost all the black hero superheroes and whatnot. Of course, this is a generalization. There are those who came before Black Lightning, such as John Stewart, who's a great Green Lantern character, whom basically went for the military to become an architect. You've got, and John was always a bit more of a Thomas Sowell type character, one who hit the books and wasn't a certain stereotype. I'll just say the blaxploitation stereotype. I mean, you've got, let's see, Blade. You've got arguably Luke Cage to an extent. Luke Cage is someone who goes through prison, becomes a superhero, and wants to clean up his name and be a better man once he's out of jail, I believe. And obviously, I really like Luke Cage as a character, but because he's had a lot of team ups with Spider-Man, and I really like Spider-Man. But that said, this whole I got out and now they just want to pull me back in thing is also of the retired hero coming out of retirement, which there's non-black characters who've gone through this. I'm going to be honest, I don't like this trope. I find it the most boring trope in superhero fiction of all times. And to an extent, it's what pushed me out of the genre, in part. Because we had Superman Returns, which beat it over our skulls. We had half the heroes of Marvel eventually that beat this over our heads at some point or another. We've got, as I said, Black Lightning. But like the first time around, it wasn't so bad with Black Lightning. But then we got things like The Incredibles, which I like The Incredibles movie, but the tired trope is tired even in that movie. But at least they explore it from a familial point of view, which is different. But here, the main character, Avery, immediately plunges into action to go take the fight to crime. At the same time, there's a nasty piece of work by the name of Yara, who is operating a bit like a vigilante and operates like a Marvel heroine. And all I'm going to say is she's opposed by some pretty super villainous looking guys called the Alpha Corps, which I don't know anything about them. I can't tell who the supervillain is here or the superhero because the problem is they look and talk like supervillains. While she, on the other hand, acts like a Punisher-esque supervillainess when she basically grabs Avery and tries to kill him by flying him up into the air and then throwing him with all her strength back to the ground onto a vehicle. An ordinary human would probably have, well, given the angle she threw him at and everything, the neck would have snapped and everything.
If they weren't tomato paste.
Yeah. So Avery's survival is as much thanks to his skill and whatnot. So we do get a sense that the character is competent, at least in combat. But he was very nearly outclassed by someone with probably a weird combination of the powers of Carol Danvers and Wanda Maximoff. So that's a little... Yeah, so I'm going to assume she should be a supervillainess because she's acting like one. And if so, okay, I guess we got our first intro to the Rogues Gallery there. And before anyone says, yeah, but actually she's supposed to be a superheroine, have you read this issue? Have you read this issue? That's aside. In the lead up to that battle, Avery tries to talk down some mobster who's selling out some Mrs. Newman's daughter, which I don't know who Mrs. Newman is. Apparently someone who helped out ISOM. I have no idea who that character is. All I know is there's some sort of debt to her. I don't care. And Mrs. Newman's daughter, the character is called Jasmine. Apparently she became a Lady of the Night. I think it's not clear. And the character of Avery, after the squabbling match, ends up deciding to try to track down this Jasmine chick and convince her not to be a Lady of the Night. And when that fails, breaks into a club only to then end up fighting some big muscle guy and then takes off, visits his sister, and then goes to get his superhero uniform. Which I'm left a little confused because I don't properly know almost any of the characters. Now, there's an old superhero trope about just dumping you into the deep end, so to speak. Like, you don't just get the origin story. You are thrown into the action, and then you're supposed to get to know the character, and then in issue like 3 or 4 or something, you're taken to the backstory. But on the other hand, I feel like this is Star Wars Episode 5 rather than Episode 4. Like if George had started with Episode 5, and we're left going, okay, so who is Darth Vader? Who is Luke Skywalker? What did Luke Skywalker do to peeve off the Empire? I don't know, who the villain is, who the hero is between Alpha Corps and Yara. And this is something that's relevant to the plot. And then there's the whole trope of, the heroes have to fight each other. Why? Why do the heroes have to always fight each other? This is such a tired trope. Are they, and the problem is that the Avery character did explain to Yara, no, I'm actually not trying to break the law. I'm not here to come after you. And she still assaults him. So the problem is, okay, in any other story, she cemented her status as supervillainous, or at least anti-hero and leaning towards supervillainy. Why not lean into that? But apparently that's not what's going to happen. So my beef here is, of course we have another Marvel universe where basically everybody's an anti-hero and every hero wants to kill each other. And it's just, yeah, I'm not too fond of that. The characterization seems pretty standard. Uh, Blaxploitation.
Yeah, black exploitation to the max. It feels like we're tackling every black cliche in black cop movie,
Yeah.
and
We're also hitting every Marvel cliche in superhero history.
indeed, and this is a story that we should have started at the origin story.
Well, yeah, maybe. Because like I said, there's an old trope about starting in the middle of the story with superheroes. But what Stanley really revolutionized was starting with the origin story. For example, Amazing Fantasy issue number 15. He starts with Spider Man's origin story. Now, that said, we're not trying to lecture, for example, Eric July on how the origin story or how the superhero run starts. Because all we're saying is, well, this feels very cliched.
And there are times where starting in the middle of the story can work, like Spider-Man the animated series.
Yeah, they did start in the middle of the action of the story. Well, yeah, in the middle. Now, all I was going to say with the whole thing with Eric July there is just, if he ever sees this video, like I said, it's just, there's cliches here, but we're not going to try to lecture someone who obviously is more familiar with and more knowledgeable of superhero fiction than us, as this is his bread and butter, this genre, I mean. But the problem I find is just, for the most part, there's large chunks of this issue that. Now, I'm not a superhero fan, and I just find this kind of boring. And there's large chunks, I said, that I know I paused middle there. It's just, we're flying by the seat of our pants and whatnot. This is not an organized review. And you could tell, and this is just, I find dull. I'm not really terribly interested. Now, I understand this is supposed to basically be a Gotham City type of place, sort of, or at least, well, maybe not Gotham City, but it's giving the vibe of something like Dakota from, I think, Static Shock Comics, or Central City from Flash Comics. And I'm actually going to sound weird here, but I'm going to say, you know what? I'm kind of tired of that kind of city. Weirdly, I think that one reason why Batman still has appeal is the dark nature of Gotham City and the dark colors. It gives the city its own personality. And you could also favor a more metropolis city, a more bright colored, hopeful city. But I just find that I'm tired of the Central City stuff of, oh, we want to be both. No, no, no. Choose one, lean into it, and only lean into that one. Because as it is, outside Metropolis and Gotham, I don't really care about most cities in superhero fiction. You have to give a certain air to it. And I almost don't even care about the Marvel vision of New York. The way it's depicted, in a way. Because it's no different than Central City or something. And I know people will say, no, New York's an actual place. Well, no, Sherlock. But still, superhero, like the minute you bring in superheroes, it changes the entire history of the world and whatnot. But yeah, the story ends with Avery trying out his superhero uniform. Obviously, he didn't have to chase down Honey for it. And finds it still fits.
And it looks fine if we're not looking at Superman type.
Well, ISOM is essentially an anti-hero. No, you read this, he's an anti-hero. He's the first hero in the story. But I have yet to see a Superman type character. I have yet to see the thing is, okay, the world has not seen for years a Superman slash Spider-Man type character, an aspirational hero. And before anyone says Spider-Man's not aspirational, he is aspirational. He's supposed to be. He stands for the, well, his main thing is that with great power there must always come great responsibility. But Spider-Man in the 90s cartoon and around the time of the Clone Saga rejected the idea of Spider-Man as an anti-hero or as a chick flick type of hero, which is what he was from 62 to about 93. And the thing is, Spider-Man was supposed to become the main flagship character because he was the most popular one of Marvel. Their answer in a way to the red and blue of Superman. And you know what? Spider-Man fits better as a Superman type character, someone we can all aspire to. He has great morals and great ethics and is just inspirational. The best Spider-Man stories involve Spider-Man giving a speech. You look at the Doctor Doom speech about responsibility from the cartoon. That is probably the greatest moment in the Spider-Man cartoon. So, the trouble of Spider-Man is the character essentially died in 1997. When they got rid of Ben Reilly, they basically got rid of Peter Parker as well. They were not interested in writing Peter Parker stories. They were only interested in rehashing and subverting his character. They were only interested in subverting MJ as well, shortly thereafter. Over with DC, Superman basically came to an end as a character in 2011 with Flashpoint and the New 52. Ever since then, we've not had an aspirational hero type. And I'm actually going to say that I find this just another anti-hero story. Would I recommend this story? Probably not. The thing is, I'm tired of anti-heroes. I'm not really the anti-hero fan. You can, if you write one, do something different. Like maybe the anti-hero trying to become the hero. And I just think, okay, it's much more interesting if you have a Punisher character who's trying to come clean, stop killing, and wants to become Superman in a way. Imagine if there was someone who wrote a story like that. That'd be pretty, at least for superhero fiction. That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting character study of someone trying to become the complete polar opposite of what he is. And here's what I'm actually going to dare people to do. Have him actually succeed within the first issue. And I know people would say, wow, no, that's an ongoing journey thing. Yes, you have the ongoing journey. But you have him not relapse, but actually struggle for the entire run, trying to stay on the straight and narrow, trying to stay as a hero, trying to be the best version of himself he can be, rather than another Punisher or Shadow knockoff, or in this case Black Lightning knockoff. And if this offends Erchelai's massive army of fans, well, sorry, princess, but too bad. On the other hand, is there potential in this story? Certainly. I see some potential. But not in the Yera character, not in the Alpha Core. They just used him as rogues gallery. The ISOM character could be interesting, but I think that it'd be much more interesting to see him veer towards a more Superman-ish role. And it'd be, well, let's be honest, the art and the coloring in this issue is fantastic. Second to none. Only maybe a few French artists that I know of here and there from bande dessinée, and maybe Ethan Van Sciver could do better art. But other than that, I don't think anyone could do better art here.
I have no complaints about the art.
That said, there's also the vocal bubbles, like the word balloons are well placed. This is the only reason I mention this is that apparently this is an art form because there are people who can't seem to do it right, as I've noticed quite a few Marvel and DC writers who, not writers, artists who can't seem to do it. So the art team is pretty good. The relationship between Avery and his niece, I like, but I just don't care about the sister character. The one farmer guy, Sam, I don't really care. But I imagine as a support character, we'll grow to care over the course of several issues. So that's not something I'm going to attack because it makes no sense to. Like I said, the only thing I'll attack is the decision going forward to use Ira and Alpha Core in more heroic light. But then again, I'm not really an anti-hero guy anymore. I'm kind of tired of most of them. Not all, but most.
Me, I am at the point where, like, anti-heroes, why can't heroes be heroes, villains be villains?
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite superheroes is Jay Garrick.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we have more of them? Why can't we have a Jay Garrick type be a protagonist? Where, yeah, he's confronted with all the shades of gray, but his faith and his and what he stands for wins out in the end.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I mean,
Like,
people assume that Jay Garrick Superman types are boring compared to the interesting Batman types, but eventually,
yeah. That said, the only retired hero story I'd like to see is maybe something like a Jay Garrick who's retired and having to come out of retirement.
I would love to see that.
That might be the only one, but it kind of would have to work with a character modeled more after Jay Garrick, like where he would have gone through World War II, and then you've got him in like the 60s or 70s and whatnot. But even then, I think that's a tired trope to an extent. Like, you'd have to model it a little after The Incredibles. And like I said, it's a tired trope. And my view is just that the superhero genre is tired and used, but I'm not a superhero fan. And if you feel that the superhero genre is not like that, that there's still stories to tell, that it's still a great genre, more power to you. And you know what? If you feel that there's more to be said, and if you really want to, how shall I put it? Say, like, well, in my story, you haven't read it yet, then if you're on Substack or something, then post your Substack in the comment section. Post your crowdfund in the comment section. No, I'll invite people to do that. More to, if you're different, we're willing to keep an open mind and check out what you've got. Because I don't think we should tell people, be quiet. I don't want to see what you're writing or dismiss your story out of hand. I want to at least see the summary and then decide. So, as said, you're welcome to basically use the comment section to spam and self-promote, because I want to see what people are coming up with. Even though I'm very disinclined towards superheroes. You're more the superhero fan, so it might be you that checks that out, and filters through it. But that said, if Air July ever sees this, yeah, well, sorry, man, but your first shot wasn't the best, in my opinion. Maybe issue 2 will be better. But, on the other hand, you're the one with the mega platform, and you at least had the funds to put your money where your mouth is, and you hired some very talented people. So, good luck. Now let's rate this issue.
Probably a 1.
Now, our ratings are usually between 0 and 4. 0 is garbage, 4 is perfection, 2 is good. I'm going to say half star. I do not really care about this issue. And I'm not very inclined towards issue number 2. I might read it just for the popularity of, it's something big, review it. But if people think differently, good for you. We always invite opposite opinions and often interact with those who disagree with us in the comment section. But on the other hand, if you have some vitriolic hatred for July, we don't. So keep it civil. No. And just know we respect him for at least jumping into the indie sphere and defying the admittedly garbage Marvel and DC. With Marvel having been garbage since 1997 and DC having been garbage since 2011.
At least writing an anti-hero, he tried to write something.
Yeah. And at least he's going to keep writing. Which, the thing about writing is, you can generally only improve. And it's not like this is... Hey, let's be honest. It's not like this is worse than anything DC and Marvel are pumping out, or any of the other big comic book companies. Titan Comics excluded. Titan is pumping out perfection. Everybody else is pumping out garbage. So if you enjoyed this video, and even if you didn't, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Megatron blasting Ironhide to pieces.